Just into CNN, sources saying that White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows told FDA Commissioner Stephen Hahn that if he does not authorize the Pfizer vaccine today, he should submit his letter of resignation. Let's get straight to CNN's Caitlin Collins at the White House. Caitlin, what are you learning about this conversation between Meadows and Hahn?
Well, Jake, it was a phone call that they had this morning, and basically the way this conversation was described to us by multiple people is that Mark Meadows told Dr. Hahn that if they were not prepared to grant that emergency authorization for Pfizer's vaccine by the end of today, that he needed to be prepared to resign. And we're told that's a larger sign of the president's frustration. We know he's been fed up with the FDA for weeks now, but this week specifically, he's been venting because he's seeing other countries roll out their vaccines and their citizens getting shots in their arms. And so he's been incredibly frustrated that the emergency use has not been granted here for Pfizer's vaccine, despite how it's been in the works for several days. And that comes, Jake, as we heard from the HHS secretary this morning saying they are working on this, that we are incredibly close to this, potentially just days away, and that this authorization could come as soon as this weekend. Yet the president's patience seems to be running thin, wearing thin, and that is why he was tweeting this morning, complaining about the FDA, calling it money drenched, and telling them to, quote, get the damn vaccines out. And now that led to this phone call between Mark Meadows and Stephen Hahn. But the question is whether or not he's actually going to be fired, and if the president is really going to go out there and fire the FDA commissioner with 6 weeks left to go in his administration, given this is the biggest thing that they are dealing with right now, Jake.
بيقولوا كل واحد فينا نفسه يعيش وسط حلمه. يا ترى
Yeah, I saw the president's tweet. He misspelled the word damn. One thing that I wonder about, Caitlin, is there have been concerns about the president putting political pressure on the scientists. That has undermined confidence in the vaccine, which, of course, is the last thing we need right now, because we need about 70% of the American people to get this vaccine when they can. How did Hahn respond to this reported threat?
So he put out a statement saying that it was being misrepresented, that he was told he was going to be fired if he didn't get it out. Instead, he said that the FDA was encouraged to continue working expeditiously on this Pfizer vaccine. That's certainly not what the White House believes that the FDA has been doing. But you're right, Jake. There has been the question of whether or not there is this political pressure being exerted over the FDA and really what they're going to accomplish if they did fire the FDA commissioner, because that could only potentially further undermine the confidence that this vaccine has gone through all the right process making and decision making that it needs to go through. And so that's really the ultimate question that the White House is facing here when it comes to this. But we should note there have been multiple tense conversations between the White House Chief of Staff and Dr. Hahn over the last several weeks. This phone call was just really a culmination of that altogether. And the president is not even hiding that he is pressuring the FDA. He says the only reason they got this through so quickly is because of his pressure, which notably the White House used to deny that he was pressuring them at all, Jake.
All right, Caitlin Collins, thanks so much. Let's bring in Dr. Paul Offit. He was on the FDA advisory panel that met yesterday and voted in favor of recommending emergency use authorization of Pfizer's vaccine. Dr. Offit is also director of the Vaccine Education Center at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. Dr. Offit, first I want to get your reaction to this reporting that the White House is basically telling Dr. Hahn, approve and authorize the vaccine today or clean out your desk. I mean, we all share this urgency, but isn't this inappropriate?
It's just meaningless saber rattling. I mean, Pfizer submitted its emergency use authorization on November the 20th. For 3 weeks, the FDA went through every piece of clinical data that Pfizer had for all these 44,000 patients that were participants that either received vaccine or received placebo, to see if there were any inconsistencies in what Pfizer had submitted and all the primary data. Then and only then they provided to us, the Vaccine Advisory Committee, not only Pfizer's original application, but their assessment of all the other data. So there's 2 huge documents which we then got to review. On Thursday, after having reviewed that and having discussed all that, we recommended approval. It was very clear that the CDC met on Friday to basically look through the same data we at the FDA looked through, and with an understanding that they were going to meet again on Sunday because they assumed that sometime in the next couple days, either tonight, Friday night, or Saturday, that the FDA would grant approval, which would be typical. And then on Sunday, they would vote on it because the CDC wouldn't vote on something that hadn't been yet approved by the FDA. So that the administration says, do this or else is ridiculous. They were doing it anyway. So I think it's just all show. It means nothing. It certainly doesn't rush the process in any sense. So people shouldn't be frightened that that's what's happening.
But to be clear, Dr. Hahn, in your view, was probably going to authorize this today or tomorrow anyway.
Exactly.
But I have to say, one of the concerns that there is about the vaccine is there are so many skeptics in the public right now. According to polling, it's about 1/3 of the American people. A number of them are in minority communities, black communities, that historically have been treated as guinea pigs, such as like the Tuskegee experiment, and they're very skeptical of the government. This could undermine confidence in the vaccine, I would think. Is that a concern?
Well, hopefully people will be convinced by the compelling nature of the data. This is a 44,000 person study. 22,000 people got vaccine, 22,000 got placebo. It was 95% effective. It was virtually 100% effective against severe disease. It was 95% effective in people over 65. African Americans were certainly well represented. Not perfectly represented, but about a little over 9% of the study participants were African Americans, who represent about 13% of the population. So it roughly equivalent to looking this trial looked like what America looks like. So, it's when you launch a vaccine like this, you're not trying to answer the question, do you know everything? You never know everything. The question is, do you know enough to say that the benefits of this vaccine clearly outweigh its, at the moment, theoretical risks? And I think that answer was pretty easy yesterday when we met.
So the message from you, a member of the advisory committee, is the vaccine is safe, people should take it, and ignore the president's buffoonery or saber rattling, as you called it. Just don't pay any attention to it. The process is going to work. That's what I'm hearing from you.
Exactly right. President Trump is completely off the point at this point in the process.
Dr. Paul Offit, thank you so much for what you do, and thanks for joining us today. Appreciate it. Let's talk about this with the panel. Olivier Knox, let me start with you. You heard Dr. Offit. It's possible that the FDA was going to approve the vaccine today or tomorrow. But now, of course, there's this concern of more pressure from the president, politicizing science, and the concern that this could undermine confidence in the vaccine.
Sure, and part of a pattern of the president of the United States pressuring, well, pretty much anyone, American corporations, American lawmakers, American governors, American scientists, American health advisors, members of his own cabinet, his attorney general, et cetera. I'm glad you highlighted the polling. The polling is pretty scary. There are large numbers, particularly of women and of minorities, who are, according to recent polling by the Associated Press, hard-nosed or unsure whether they will take the vaccine. And we need, as you said, about 70% of Americans to sign up for this in order to beat back the pandemic.
Nia Malika Henderson, President-elect Joe Biden, moments ago made a point to stress that the vaccine was developed free from political influence. It will be safe. He told me a couple weeks ago he will be inoculated. He will be vaccinated in public if appropriate. What does this accomplish? Donald Trump is on his way out the door. Why do this?
This is a terrible, terrible thing, given what we know about the skepticism that many, many people have, people I talk to, people you all talk to, as well, about this vaccine. This is the fear, that it was rushed, that they didn't do their due diligence in this vaccine. You have the doctor, of course, saying something different. People should look at the data, but people might not want to look at the data, right? That's not how people necessarily think about these things. They see what this president has done with this phone call, with this real pressure. This is a real dangerous thing that happened today. I mean, when I read this story, my stomach dropped because it is only going to feed the skepticism, feed the view that maybe people shouldn't take this vaccine because it has been politicized and maybe it was rushed. I mean, I talked to Democrats, white people, white men, black people, all sorts of folks are just so skeptical of this vaccine. And to have this happen today, there needs to be some sort of widespread education campaign. Dr. Offit is one person, and you saw Joe Biden talk about this today, but this needs to be much more front and center. I think Obama said that he might take this thing live on television. It might not be the best viewing, but in terms of a public education campaign about this vaccine, that is going to be certainly necessary because people are just deeply skeptical, and with good reason.
Well, this not according to the science. I mean,
right.
Historically, they might be skeptical.
That's right. I think there are two things.
Or Trump politicizing it. But in terms of the science, they shouldn't be skeptical. They should take it. I'll certainly get it as soon as I can. It's just amazing to me, Operation Warp Speed, such an accomplishment of the Trump White House, and he continues to step all over it.